Continuing our discussion on the principle of the MS, this figure represents the MS of methanol by electron ionization. So yesterday we understood that the most intense peak is called the base peak, and it is arbitrarily assigned the relative abundance of 100%, and the abundances of all the other peaks, they are given their proportionate values as percentages of the base peak, that is with reference to the base peak. Now the ions provide information concerning the nature and the structure of their precursor molecule. Why ions are so important? They provide information concerning the nature and as well as the structure of their precursor molecule. So in the spectrum of a pure compound, the molecular ion, if present, appears at the highest value of m by z. Then following these are the ions containing heavier isotopes, right? So in the spectrum of a pure compound, the molecular ion, if present, appears at the highest value of m by z, followed by ions containing heavier isotopes, and that gives the molecular mass of the compound. Now what does the molecular ion refer to? The term molecular ion refers to an ion corresponding to a complete molecule regarding occupied valencies. So this molecular ion appears at m by z value of 32 in the given figure 1. Because it is appearing at the highest value of m by z, the peak 32. That means this molecular ion appears at m by z 32 in the given spectrum of methanol. And just now I said, after the molecular ion which appears at the highest value of m by z, followed by ions containing heavier isotopes. So in this figure, the molecular ion appears at m by z 32 in the spectrum, where the peak at m by z 33 is due to the presence of C13 isotope. So this is having an intensity that is 1.1% of that of m by z 32 peak. So how to calculate the intensity of 1.1%? That is 0.73 over 66. So it is 0.73, that is relative abundance of peak 33 over 66, the relative abundance of peak 32. So this molecular ion which appears at m by z 32 in the spectrum of methanol where the peak at M by Z 33 is due to the presence of the C13 isotope with an intensity that is 1.1% of that of the M by Z 32 peak. Right. So in the same spectrum, the peak at M by Z 15 indicates the presence of a methyl group, that is CH3. So the difference between 32 and 15, that is 17. So this difference is the characteristic of the loss of a neutral mass of 17 Daltons by the molecular ion, and it is typical of a hydroxyl group. Right? So the molecular ion is at M by Z 32, and this molecular ion provide information concerning the nature and structure of the precursor molecule. And you are seeing peak at 15, M by Z 15, which refer to methyl group, that is CH3, C for 12, and H, that is 3 into 1, rounded off to 15. And the difference between 32 and 15 is 17, which is typical of a hydroxyl group, that is OH. In the same spectrum, you can see the peak at M by Z 16. So this could formally correspond to the ions, that is CH4 or even the O plus, because they all have M by Z values equal to 16 at low resolution. So O plus is unlikely to occur, and a doubly charged ion for such a small molecule is not stable enough to be observed. So this is how you assign the mass to a molecule. So what you have to remember over here is what is the base peak and what is the molecular ion. So this example was very simple to understand how the mass is obtained with the data that is given or presented as a graph or maybe as a table. And there are different ways to define and calculate the mass of an atom or molecule or ion. So for stoichiometric calculations, what we do is we use the average mass calculated using the atomic weight, which is the weighted average of the atomic masses of the different isotopes of each element in the molecule. So you have to be very, very careful and make a note of what we are trying to understand. So for stoichiometric calculations, we use the average mass calculated using the atomic weight. But in mass spectrometry, the nominal mass or the monoisotopic mass is generally used. Right? Now I am introducing two terminologies: the nominal mass or the monoisotopic mass. The nominal mass is calculated using the mass of the predominant isotope of each element, then rounded to the nearest integer value that corresponds to the mass number and also called nucleon number. Right? I'll repeat. The nominal mass is calculated using the mass of the predominant isotope of each element, rounded to the nearest integer value that corresponds to the mass number and also called the nucleon number. But the exact masses of isotopes are not exact whole numbers. And we know that they differ weakly from the summed mass values of their constituent particles, that are protons, neutrons and electrons. So these differences, which are called as the mass defects, they are equivalent to the binding energy that holds these particles together. So I am introducing one more term, the mass defect. So the exact masses of isotopes are not exact whole numbers, and as we know, they differ weakly from the summed mass values of their constituent particles. So these differences are called the mass defects, and which are equivalent to the binding energy that holds these particles together. Consequently, every isotope has a unique and characteristic mass defect. So this has to be kept in mind. Every isotope has a unique and characteristic mass defect. The monoisotopic mass, which takes into account these mass defects, is calculated by using the exact mass of the most abundant isotope for each constituent element. So now with respect to monoisotopic mass, so this takes into account the mass defects, and the monoisotopic mass is calculated by using the exact mass of the most abundant isotope for each constituent element. So the difference between the average mass, the nominal mass and the monoisotopic mass can amount to several Daltons. So that definitely there will be differences, and these differences between average mass, nominal mass and the monoisotopic mass, it can read to several Daltons. Right? So to sum up, we have, or there are many different ways to define and calculate the mass of an atom or a molecule or ion. There is average mass, there is nominal mass, and there is monoisotopic mass. In mass spectrometry, the nominal mass or the monoisotopic mass is generally used, and the differences between the average mass, the nominal mass and the monoisotopic mass, it can amount to several Daltons depending on the number of atoms and their isotopic composition. So this or the type of mass determined by mass spectrometry depends largely on the resolution and accuracy of the analyzer. So analyzers are very important component of mass spectrometry. The type of mass determined by mass spectrometry depends largely on number 1 the resolution, number 2 the accuracy of the analyzer. Let us consider methyl chloride as an example. Actually, chlorine atoms are mixtures of two isotopes whose exact masses are respectively 34.96 and 36.96, and their relative abundances are 75.77% and 24.23% respectively. So, by taking methyl chloride as an example, we will try to understand how the mass is assigned. The chlorine atom is a mixture of two isotopes and the exact masses are 34.96 and 36.96. The relative abundances are 75.77% and 24.23%. Now the atomic weight of chlorine atom is the balanced average that amounts to 35.453 Daltons. So you can see how it is calculated. Now the average mass of methyl chloride is CH3Cl, that is 12.01 plus 3 times 1.0 plus 35.45, that is equal to 50.48 Daltons. So this is the average mass of methyl chloride. Okay. Now whereas the monoisotopic mass is 12 plus 3 multiplied by 1.0 plus 34.96, that amounts to 49.99. So there is difference with respect to Daltons. Of course, this is a small molecule, so the difference may not be that big when compared to the average mass and monoisotopic mass. The average mass reads about 50.48 and the monoisotopic mass reads about 49.99. So what happens when you measure the mass of methyl chloride in a spectrometer? So you will get two isotopic peaks. That means two isotopic peaks will appear at their respective masses and relative abundances. Right? The two mass to charge ratios will be observed in a mass spectrometer. So you will be observing two M by Z ratios. The first peak will be at M by Z 34.96, that is giving a monoisotopic mass of 49.99. Then this is rounded to M by Z 50. The second peak, that is the second isotope, 36.96. So this is giving a monoisotopic mass of 51.98, and it is rounded to M by Z 52. So you can carefully read between lines in the given slide. So the first peak will be at 49.99, that corresponds to one isotope, that is 34.96 for the chlorine, and 49.99 is rounded to M by Z 50, and the second peak corresponding to the isotope 36.96 gives a mass of 51.98 rounded to M by Z 52. So the abundance of this latter M by Z value, that is 52, it is about 31.98% of that observed at M by Z 50. So M by Z 50 is more abundant, and the abundance of this M by Z 52 is only 31.98% to that observed at M by Z 50. So that is the mass of methyl chloride, because that is more abundant. And here carbon and hydrogen, they are also composed of isotopes, but at much lower abundances, so they are neglected, especially with respect to this example. Now, what if the molecules are having high molecular weight? For molecules with very high molecular weight, the differences between the different masses can become notable. That means very significant. Till now we discussed for small molecules, and as a biochemist we will be trying to get the mass of proteins and peptides, which are quite bigger molecules. So here, with respect to high molecular weight molecules, the differences between the different masses, average mass, monoisotopic mass, so these differences between different masses can become significant or notable, right? So I'll take another example, that is the masses of two alkanes having the molecular formulae C20H42 and C100H202. So how the masses of these two alkanes having the molecular formula C20H42 and C100H202 are calculated. Among these two alkanes, C20H22 is the smaller alkane. Its nominal mass is, you can easily calculate by writing down. The nominal mass is 282. that is for C20 20 into 12 and H42 42 into 1, that corresponds to 282. But its monoisotopic mass is 282.32, right? And it is rounded to 282.33. So there is a difference of 0.33. And its average mass is 282.55. So the nominal mass is 282. The monoisotopic mass is 282.33. The average mass is 282.55. So the difference between these different types of masses are small, right? It is 282 to 282.33 and 282.55. So the differences between the nominal mass, monoisotopic mass and the average mass for this smaller alkane C20H42, so the differences are small, but for heavier alkane, that is C100 and H202, the nominal mass is 1402, the monoisotopic mass is 1403.5, and its average mass is 1404.7. Can you understand the difference between a smaller alkane and heavier alkane, and the differences between the different types of masses? So what we can understand in conclusion is that the monoisotopic mass is used when it is possible experimentally to distinguish the isotopes, whereas the average mass is used when the isotopes are not distinguishable, right? So we have introduced so many terminologies: the molecular ion, different types of masses, nominal mass, monoisotopic mass, the average mass, and I have given the example of simple molecules and how the masses are calculated. In mass spectrometry, what kinds of or what types of masses are generally used, and concluding that monoisotopic mass is used when it is possible to experimentally distinguish the isotopes, whereas the average mass is used when the isotopes are not distinguishable. So the use of nominal mass is not recommended and should only be used for low mass compounds containing only the elements such as C, H, N, O and S, to avoid in making bigger mistakes, right? And a mass spectrometry always contain the following elements as discussed in previous session: a sample inlet to introduce the compound, an ionization source to produce ions, a data processing system. However, some mass spectrometers combine the sample inlet and the ionization source, and others combine the mass analyzers and the detector. So the mass spectrometer should always perform the following processes. So I'll stop my discussion over here. we can continue our discussion on the working principle of the mass spectrometer in the next session. Thank you very much.